I'm Emma. I landed my first real job as an accountant at D&M Construction right out of college. My desk was buried in the back corner of the office, a tiny space crammed with piles of invoices and contract agreements. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. It was during one of those late evenings when I first met Michael. I was wrestling with an especially stubborn printer that decided to jam when he walked by. He was the new head of the project department, and he had that sort of aura that turned heads, a confident stride and a sharp suit. "Need a hand?" he asked, noticing my battle with the paper tray. I looked up, slightly embarrassed. "Yeah, this thing hates me." Michael chuckled and stepped closer, his hands skillfully navigating the guts of the printer. "These machines have a mind of their own." "Thanks," I sighed as he pulled out a crumpled sheet of paper. "I'm Emma, by the way." "Michael, I've seen you around. You're the one making all the numbers work, right?" He flashed a grin that made me forget about the printer for a moment. We continued to see more of each other, and our casual meetings started to feel like the best parts of my day. Michael was easy to be around, charming, yes, but also genuinely interested in what I had to say. One Friday, as we were leaving the office together, Michael stopped me by the elevator. "Emma, would you like to go out tomorrow? Maybe see a movie or grab some dinner?" A few months into our dating, Michael decided it was time I met his parents. He still lived with them in a small, cozy apartment cluttered with family photos and keepsakes. The anticipation of meeting them was nerve-wracking, not just because they were his parents, but also because I knew they held traditional views about success and roles within a family. As we stepped into the apartment, the smell of homemade food welcomed us. Michael introduced me with a proud smile. "Mom, Dad, this is Emma, the woman I told you about." His mother, Linda, scrutinized me from head to toe, then offered a stiff smile as she shook my hand. "So, Emma, where do you work?" she asked, her voice laced with curiosity, but somehow sharp. "I'm an accountant at D&M Construction," I replied, trying to sound confident. "An accountant, huh?" His father, George, chimed in, leaning back in his chair. "Well, our Michael is the head of new projects." "Quite a significant role. Right, Michael?" Michael nodded. "Yeah, Dad, but Emma's job is crucial too. She handles a lot of the company's finances." Linda and George exchanged looks, their expressions unreadable. "Yes, but you're the one with the career that's going places," Linda said, turning her gaze back to me. "An accountant is nice, dear, but Michael is making real strides in the company." The air thickened with that statement, and I forced a smile, feeling my stomach twist. It was clear they saw a hierarchy where their son stood on top, and I was just there. The dinner progressed with small talk and an undercurrent of judgment. I could tell they were assessing my every word, my every move, to see if I measured up to their expectations for their son. Not long after that uncomfortable dinner, Michael popped the question in our favorite park. It was surreal. There he was, down on one knee, with the most earnest look in his eyes. My joy was palpable. "Yes, Michael, yes." As we started planning our life together, the bubble of our engagement was pricked by the reality of his parents' influence. One evening, while Michael was helping his mom with dishes after another dinner at their place, Linda pulled me aside. "Emma, dear," she began, her voice low and serious, "Michael has a promising future. And with such a future, we just think it's wise to organize things properly." "What do you mean, organize?" "A prenuptial agreement, dear. It's just practical," she explained, her tone implying that it was a foregone conclusion. The word hit me like a ton of bricks. "Prenup? Are you suggesting I might go after Michael's money?" "It's not personal, dear. It's precautionary," she answered, her voice soft but firm. When Michael and I were finally alone in the car, I couldn't keep it in anymore. "Michael, your mom wants us to sign a prenup." He didn't seem surprised. "Yeah, she mentioned it to me too. It's just a safety net." He tried to reassure me, reaching out for my hand. I pulled away, feeling betrayed. Feels more like a trap, Michael. He looked hurt. It's not a trap. It's just how my family handles things. They want to protect what we're building. The rest of the ride was silent, each of us lost in our thoughts. At home, Michael brought out the prenup papers. They lay on our kitchen table, like an uninvited guest. Look, Emma, it's straightforward. We'll both be protected, he said, attempting to bridge the gap between us. I leafed through the document, each clause tightening the knot in my stomach. This doesn't protect us, Michael. It protects you from me. We can change anything you're not comfortable with, he offered, but his voice lacked conviction. We spent the next few hours going over every line, negotiating terms that felt less like a betrayal. It was tough, arguing over hypotheticals that felt like they could tear us apart. But by the end of the night, we forged something that looked less like his parents' will and more like a mutual agreement. Adjusting to married life in our little rented apartment came with its own set of joys and challenges. At first, everything felt new and exciting, even the mundane tasks of setting up home and figuring out who does what. Michael and I fell into a comfortable routine, filled with small celebrations of our new life together. At work, I kept on with my accounting duties, just another face among many in a large company. But things started to shift when, a year into our marriage, my boss, Mr. Thompson, called me into his office. He was a man of few words, and even fewer smiles. Emma, you've been pulling some impressive numbers. I see potential in you, he said, his voice gruff, but not unkind. I was taken aback, unsure of what this meant. Thank you, Mr. Thompson. I appreciate your confidence in me. It's not just confidence, he continued, shuffling papers on his desk as if looking for evidence of my hard work. It's fact. I'm promoting you to chief accountant. The promotion came as a shock, but it was a welcome one. I couldn't wait to share the news with Michael, thinking he'd be thrilled. When I told him over dinner, his reaction was mixed, a smile, yes, but there was a hesitation in his eyes. That's great, babe. Really? Chief accountant, huh? He said, trying to keep his voice upbeat. Yeah, can you believe it? I replied, excitement bubbling in my chest. Sure. It's just, you'll be making more now, right? A lot more than me, he added, his tone shifting slightly. I reached across the table, squeezing his hand. Hey, this is good for us, for our future. It's our success, not just mine. Michael nodded, but his smile didn't quite reach his eyes. Yeah, of course. Just don't go bragging to my folks, okay? They still think I'm the high flyer in the family. I agreed, not wanting to cause any family tensions. Your secret's safe with me, I assured him with a light laugh, trying to keep the atmosphere easy. But as the months rolled by and my responsibilities increased, so did the gap between Michael's perception of our careers and the reality. Another year passed, and another promotion landed on my lap, this time to financial director. The gap in our incomes widened, and Michael's jokes about my rich wife became more frequent, each one stinging a bit more than the last. One evening, I overheard Michael on the phone with his mother. No, Emma's just the same, still crunching numbers. Yeah, she likes it well enough. I stood frozen outside the room, the words hitting harder than expected. He hadn't told them about either of my promotions. I confronted him about it later that night. Why haven't you told your parents about my job? About how well I'm doing? I asked, feeling both hurt and angry. Michael sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. Look, Emma, it's complicated. Dad, he's got these old-fashioned ideas about success and who provides in the family. I knew he was right about his parents, but it didn't make the deception easier to swallow. We're supposed to be a team, Michael. It feels like you're ashamed of what I've achieved. The conversation lingered in the air, unresolved. We were a team, but at that moment, it felt like we were playing on different fields. I knew I had to be understanding, but part of me also needed Michael to step up and own our reality, not just the one his parents wanted to see. Living with Michael had its ups and downs, but what really started to wear on me was the financial strain caused by his parents' constant demands for money. Before we got married, Michael lived with them and took care of all their expenses. Now that we were on our own, I had hoped that would change, but old habits die hard. One evening, as I was sorting through our monthly bills, I noticed that the numbers just weren't adding up. We seemed to be bleeding money faster than I could account for. "Michael, we need to talk about our finances," I said as he walked in from work, looking tired. "What's up?" he asked, dropping his bag by the door and sinking into the couch with a sigh. "It's about the money going out every month. I'm paying all the bills and the rent, and it's starting to add up. Aren't you contributing to any of these?" I asked, trying to keep my tone even but feeling my frustration bubble. Michael rubbed his temples and sighed. "Look, I've been helping my folks out a lot lately. They've had some extra expenses, and, well, I can't just leave them hanging." "But that's all your money going to them. What about us? Our future?" I pressed, needing him to see the full picture. I know. It's just temporary. Things will stabilize," he reassured me, but his voice lacked conviction. "This temporary seems to be stretching indefinitely, Michael. Your mom even tells people that you're the one supporting me, and that's far from the truth," I countered, feeling the sting of each word. Michael looked away, the weight of the situation sinking in. "I'm sorry, Emma. I owe them a lot. They raised me, and it feels wrong to turn them away when they need help." "But at what cost? We can't even plan for anything because we don't know how much of your paycheck will go to your parents each month," I argued, my worry growing as I thought about our future. He didn't have an answer, just sat there looking as lost as I felt. The conversation was going nowhere, and it left a sour taste in my mouth. The next time we visited his parents, the tension was palpable. His mother, Linda, made a point of mentioning how Michael had been their rock, hinting at how much he'd been helping them out. "We don't know what we'd do without Michael. He's been such a support, not just emotionally but financially too," she said, glancing my way with a sharp smile. As days turned into weeks with no change, I began to wonder if we'd ever find our way out of this mess, or if the weight of his obligations to his parents would always overshadow our plans and dreams. As time marched on, the idea of buying our own place started to seem more like a necessity than a luxury. I broached the subject with Michael one night while we were cleaning up after dinner. "Michael, I've been thinking," I started, wiping down the counter. "Maybe it's time we looked into buying a house. Renting is just throwing money away every month." Michael paused, drying a plate slowly. "A house, huh? Yeah, that sounds great, but do we have enough for a down payment?" "I've been saving up on the side. I think we might just have enough to get us through the door, if we tighten our belts a bit more," I replied, hopeful. He put the plate down and leaned against the counter. "That's incredible, Em. I didn't know you had that much set aside." "Well, I wanted it to be a surprise. But here's the thing," I continued, bracing myself for his reaction. "The down payment will mostly be from my savings. I mean, I want this to be our home, equally ours, but on paper, it'll look a bit lopsided." Michael's face fell slightly, and he nodded. "I get it. Your money, your rules. I just wish I could chip in more." "It's not about rules, Michael. It's our home. But legally, I think it would make sense to have the house under my name, just for now," I explained, trying to keep the conversation light but firm. Michael sighed, scratching his head. "Yeah, I guess that makes sense. As long as we're together in this, that's what counts, right?" "Exactly, we're in this together," I reassured him, reaching out to squeeze his hand. We started house hunting that weekend, and it didn't take long before we found a small, charming place that felt just right. Once the house was officially ours, I took on the mortgage payments, and we moved in. It felt like a fresh start, a real part of our future taking shape. But old habits and secrets don't just stay behind, especially not Michael's tendency to shield his parents from our reality. One evening, I overheard Michael on the phone in our new study. "No, Mom, the house is great. Yeah, Emma's really done well for herself. I'm keeping up, don't worry, he said, his voice low. When he came out, I confronted him. Why do you keep doing that? Making it sound like I'm the one pulling all the weight. Michael flinched, then exhaled deeply. I didn't mean anything by it, Emma. It's just easier this way. They think I'm doing well, too. Let's just enjoy our new home, okay? We'll deal with my parents later. I nodded, reluctantly letting the issue go, but it gnawed at me. Our home was supposed to be our sanctuary, not another stage for half-truths and tiptoeing around delicate egos. Life at home was tense after Michael's latest career hiccup. He was always on edge, trying to secure a promotion by hustling harder at work, making deals left and right. He seemed more desperate to prove himself, especially to his parents. One evening, while Michael was late again, caught up in meetings, I stumbled upon some documents sprawled across our home office desk. The top sheet caught my eye, a contract proposal with a company I recognized as recently declared bankrupt. Alarm bells rang in my head. Signing with a bankrupt company could jeopardize not only Michael's position but could also drag our company through the mud. When Michael finally came home, I confronted him. Michael, what's this about signing with a company that's bankrupt? Do you realize the risks involved? He brushed me off with a wave of his hand, his eyes glued to his phone. I know what I'm doing, Emma. This deal could be a big break for me. But it's a reckless move. It could backfire on you, and on both of us. Please, think this through, I pleaded, hoping to get through to him. Michael scoffed. Look, Emma, I get that you're trying to help, but I know how to handle my job. These are the risks we have to take in the business world. A few weeks later, my worst fears came true. Michael came home, paler than usual, slumping into a chair across from me in the kitchen. I was fired today, he muttered, avoiding my gaze. I was furious and scared, but managed to keep my voice steady. What are we going to do now? You know we have the mortgage and all our other bills. Michael was quiet, then he looked up with a desperate sort of determination. Just, don't tell my parents, okay? They can't know about this. It would crush them. So I agreed, more out of shock than anything else, and we pretended nothing had changed when his parents called or visited. But now, with only my income, the financial strain was immense. I handled our expenses alone, feeling the burden of each bill. One day, Michael came to me, hesitant. Emma, I need to ask you for something. It's about my parents, they need some financial help again. Could we? I cut him off, unable to hide my frustration. You want me to give more money to your parents now? When we're barely scraping by with your job gone and me covering everything? Michael flinched. It's just that they're really strapped this month, and I promised. No, Michael. Just no. I'm stretched thin as it is. You need to sort this out. Find a job, any job, I snapped, the stress boiling over. He didn't say anything, just walked away, and we didn't speak for the rest of the week. Losing my mother was one of the hardest things I've ever had to endure. The only silver lining was the small house she left me, a quaint place where I had so many childhood memories. Not long after the funeral, my mother-in-law, Linda, brought up the house. You know, dear, it might be best if you sold that little house. You could use the money to help us, she suggested during one of their visits. I was stunned by her audacity. It's my house, Linda, and I'm going to keep it. I've decided to rent it out to help pay off our mortgage, I responded, trying to keep my cool. Linda frowned, clearly not happy with my decision, but she didn't push further at the time. I was too overwhelmed with work and managing our finances to handle the rentals myself, so I asked Michael to find us tenants. A few weeks later, he told me he'd found the perfect tenants, an elderly couple looking for a place just like my mom's house. Trusting him, I thought nothing more of it until a few months later when I realized that no rent had been deposited into my account. Concerned, I decided to visit the house and speak with the tenants directly. When I arrived, the sight before me was like a slap in the face. Michael's parents were lounging in the living room, completely at home. What the hell is going on here? I demanded, my voice shaking with rage. Linda looked up, not the least bit ashamed. Oh, hello, dear. Michael said we could stay here. Isn't it lovely? I was expecting tenants who would pay rent, Linda. Not you living here rent-free. I shot back, feeling betrayed. We're family, dear. We thought you wouldn't mind, she replied, her tone dismissive. I stormed out and called Michael right then and there. Why are your parents in my mother's house? You told me you rented it out to an elderly couple. They are an elderly couple, Emma. And they needed a place. You can afford to help out. Michael tried to justify over the phone. This is not helping, Michael. This is taking advantage. I'm paying our mortgage alone, and now this? Your parents need to leave. Now. I said firmly, my decision absolute. Michael was silent for a moment. Emma, they have nowhere else to go. They sold their apartment. They thought. I don't care what they thought. They have until the end of the week to move out. I cut him off, too angry to care about anything else. The conversation ended badly, with Michael pleading and me standing my ground. When I confronted his parents again, telling them they needed to leave, Linda lashed out. You can't do this to us, Emma. We're family. Where's your heart? She cried out, her words bitter and cold. My heart is trying to keep my head above water, Linda. You need to leave. I replied, my voice firm, despite the tremor I felt inside. They didn't move willingly. I had to call the police to escort them out after they refused to leave by the deadline. Linda's parting words were venomous, cursing me and calling me heartless. Walking back into my own home after the mess with the police, I was hoping for some peace, maybe a moment to gather my thoughts. But the universe had other plans. As soon as I opened the door, the first thing I heard was the murmurs from the living room, my mother-in-law's voice unmistakably sharp. I dropped my keys on the hall table and walked in to find Linda and George sitting there, coffee in hand, chatting with Michael. Their expressions turned, fixing me with looks that ranged from accusatory to outright hostile. Michael stood up abruptly, his face red with anger. How could you do that to my parents, Emma? Apologize, now. Linda chimed in, her tone dripping with disdain. You've shown your true colors today, Emma. You're unworthy of our family. I think you should leave this house, it belongs to our son. And as if to twist the knife a bit deeper, she added, remember the prenup. You won't get a thing from us, and Michael will have the house. I stared at them, the absurdity of the situation almost laughable. Michael nodded along with his mother's words, a smug look on his face. That's right, Emma. You're my wife, you should listen to me, obey me. If you don't, I'll leave you. And good luck without the alimony. I laughed. You think I want anything from you, Michael? I agree to the divorce. In fact, I welcome it. Michael's face went pale, his confident stance faltering. I was just. That was just a joke. Come on, Emma. But I was done. Turning to his parents, I laid it all out. Michael has been unemployed for over a year now. He lives off my earnings, in my house. I made the down payment, I pay the mortgage. Legally and otherwise, this house is mine. The color drained from Linda's face as she turned to Michael, who could only lower his head in shame, muttering, It's true. I want all of you out of my house. Now. And don't come back, I said, my voice steady, but my whole body shaking with the intensity of the moment. They were indignant, of course. Linda started to argue, but I was firm. Leave now, or I call the police again. I heard Linda demanding Michael pay for a hotel, his quiet, defeated voice responding, I don't have any money, Mom. Once they were gone, the weight of the confrontation hit me. I turned to Michael, who still seemed stunned by how things had turned out. You should leave too, Michael. I'll send your things. That night, he left, and the silence of the house was both eerie and soothing. The divorce proceedings were straightforward. Michael didn't contest anything, perhaps out of guilt, perhaps out of resignation, perhaps out of the lack of money for a good lawyer. Now, living alone, I've regained a sense of peace and control. I rent out my mother's house, which helps cover the mortgage, and every decision, from the groceries I buy to the color I paint the walls, is mine alone. At night, I sit in the living room, the same room that once hosted so many painful confrontations, and I feel a deep sense of relief. I'm free. Free from the deceit, free from the control, and most importantly, free to build my life the way